Hello, it's Kevin. So welcome to Principles of Posture Lesson 4. And here's what we're going to do in this video. We're going to continue from what we did the last time, which was, I was talking, the last principle was the posture is made of movements. And if you change the movements, you can change the posture. There'll be a different shape at the end of the movements. So that begs the question, what shape should we go for? So you've done some experiments where you've been looking at your own shape that you make. I assume you're doing the experiments. It won't work if you don't. And if you're taking some screenshots of videos you've made, you'll be able to see the shape that you're making. Well, what should you do instead? So you wouldn't be watching this video. You wouldn't be in this course if you weren't happy the way things are. So you need to have something to aim at. Most of the advice online about posture is wrong, I think. The diagrams they show about what's correct and what's wrong. You've seen all these images of the guy slouching and then a guy what they think is standing up straight. I think all these things are incorrect. I understand why they think that's correct though. But I'm going to give you a different model here. So be warned, it will be weird. Some people might find it ridiculous. I'll try and give my reasoning here. But either way, even if you don't agree with this model of posture, it doesn't matter, because by doing the experiments, you're learning to change your own posture, and then you can change it to something else if you have more information later or a different opinion, or you work in some field that you'll have your own knowledge and practices. That's up to you. So I'm going to show you this model of posture, which I'm calling here expanded posture. Maybe you could call it optimal posture. I don't really want to call it good posture because people already have a idea of what they think good posture is. They might even have a feeling of it. That's kind of straightening up, pulling the shoulders back thing. You probably just did it just now when I talked about it. So after that, once you've this will involve a lot of pictures and to try and get the idea of this shape in your mind. And then you're going to compare yourself to it, and then you're going to change. I'm going to give you an experiment to do a very specific one that will kind of force your body into the shape of this new posture. That's not the way we're going to do it forever. I'll show you in the next video or the next couple of lessons. I'll show you a better way of getting into the position, but this is essential for the first one, for first learning, so that you can experience how weird it feels first. You might need to make some changes. You might even find it impossible and you're unable to do it. That's okay, because if it was easy, you would already be doing it. So, okay, so it's enough intro. So this is just basic, this video. So just watch the video, study the diagrams, try and understand why. You'll probably need to watch it twice, because I'm going to talk about posture. I'm going to talk about this ideal type of posture from two different angles at the same time. So if you go back and watch it again, it'll make more sense. And then do the experiments at the end. So principle posture number 4, this relates to expansion of the torso. So last time, in an earlier lesson, we talked about the torso, and I'm defining torso as, so if you see our friend on the right, the torso is, if you cut off the neck and head, you cut off the arms, and you cut off the legs, and you're just left with this main central part of the body, up to where the ribs join the spine at the top, down to the bottom of your pelvis, to your sitting bones at the bottom. And this mechanism of the torso, we want to expand as a whole. Principle posture 4 is to stop doing movements that shorten and narrow your torso as a whole, and start doing movements that lengthen and widen your torso as a whole. So as a whole is important. It's not about lengthening individual parts and hoping they all add up like kind of sort of Lego to good posture at the end. It doesn't work like that. You need to expand the torso as a whole. So I'm going to show you what this means. So why this matters. So expansion and contraction are kind of it's kind of life, really, if you think about it. So what we need is, from a philosophical point of view, I did a tweet a while ago that People liked what I said. Are you expanding out from the earth towards the light, the sun and the stars? Or are you contracting back down inward and collapsing down and hanging your head in shame? So obviously just try to be poetic, but you get the idea of what we're saying here is posture is standing, is expanding out from the earth, this upright standing that humans do. But for practical reasons, to actually change your posture, what does this really mean? It means the question to ask is, are you lengthening in stature or shortening in stature? So stature is you could say your height. And this is something that we can measure. So this is the part of the idea with the videos and the screenshots. And you'll see the guy here on the image here. So the Leaning Tower of Pisa and this kind of spine. The distance, because this is leaning, so the very top to the very bottom, the distance is shortened. So I'm not talking about following it along in a diagonal. I'm talking about vertically. So from the ground, from the bottom, at the height at the bottom, so this is the chair, to the height at the top, level with the top, horizontal line level at the top. That distance is shortened because he's leaned over. So he's contracted back down into the earth. He's got shorter. He has shortened the torso. So here's how we're going to look at this. So this is the ways I showed you earlier about how people shorten the torso. The two main ways is slouching and the Sergeant Major style. So why is this shortening the torso? Because if you bend something and the middle sticks out, the two ends at the top get closer together. So it's shortened, the distance is shortened. So I'm not talking about following it round in a curve. I'm talking about from the vertical distance. I'm talking about from the highest point to the lowest point. So if you're going to bend backwards in the middle, if you're going to bend your middle torso back like this, and you see his head is so close to his knees, he's shortened his torso a huge amount. But the guy on the right is also doing this, but he's bending the other way. So if you wanted to make the torso longer, what would you do? You would push back this middle without the top collapsing. So if you push the middle, so if you imagine Superman with a bent bar, he bends the bar, the two hands are close together, and then if he was going to straighten the bar, the hands would come further apart. So that distance between the hands is the equivalent of the distance between like your head, top of your head and your feet, or the top of the torso on the bottom of the torso. So you're like, maybe your sitting bones up to your like the top of the sternum spot that we've talked about. So the goal is to expand the torso, and that means you're going to get taller. So that's a good thing. People are looking for height usually. So sometimes people already feel that they're tall enough, or maybe even too tall, and they end up stooping down to the little people. So learning to do this will help you stop doing that, and you'll be able to bend down to the little people in a better way rather than collapsing and stooping down because you're use your height. I added an inch or two, about an inch and a half doing this work to my height, but I still never made 6 foot, just under. So enjoy your height, don't waste it, and don't sacrifice yourself to people just to come down to their height and be polite. But for most people, you want to be taller. So this is the way. Instead of getting shorter, you want to get taller. So I'll show you what would be taller, how you'd make yourself taller. So you would flatten the curve in the middle. So this is F. Matthias Alexander, early images of him. And I want you to look at this peculiar structure he has and compare it to the images before. So you'll notice he has a straight line of his back. So from his sitting bones at the bottom, from the sacrum at the back, all the way up to just level with under his armpit. You'll see there's this straight line even when he's bending. So this is him where he's working at a school when this is the stage where he's working hands-on with people. I don't teach that way anymore. I teach people to do it themselves rather than to rely on a teacher. But anyway, Alexander kind of did both. So I'm focused on his earlier work. So anyway, if you see the structure here, it's straight, and compare it to the guys before, you'll see it's curved, the lower and middle back. And then there's a couple of peculiar things. you'll see his head is very far forward and up of his lower back. It's not, so if you think about those images that you normally see for good posture, they usually have the head directly above the like lumbar spine. Well, you see his head isn't, it's forward. So there's reasons for this. And you'll see that his shoulders actually aren't pulled back either. They're actually forward. So shoulders are forward. That seems contradictory. Everyone's always saying pull your shoulders back because people are slouching all the time. And the head is forward. So this sounds like it would be slouching, but look, he clearly isn't. He has an expanded torso and his head is further away from the body than it would have been. And the benefits of this structure, which anyone can do once you learn some different movements, is that this area here is this shape is what activates the springs. So we have a big sheets of elastic basically in our back fascia that when it's pulled apart, it's like an elastic band. But if it's not pulled, both ends aren't pulled apart. So like the straight line here where the green line is, if you don't do that, it doesn't activate them. So the next lesson will be specifically about the springs and how to activate them. But for now, I just want you to look at the shape that it creates and compare it to these kind of rounded, back carved in, back carved out, as opposed to this long flat back. So yes, this seems weird, but if a better version of posture wasn't weird, there wouldn't be any problems. Everyone would have okay posture or decent posture, and it wouldn't be such an epidemic of posture problems. So I told you it would be weird. It'll make more sense as we go along. So this is F. Matthias Alexander. This is how he looked in the early days. It's not how typical Alexander technique teachers look now. If you look up this kind of thing, I was trained as that originally. I know what it is. I know about it. I don't follow that way anymore. I don't think it's good for posture. There's other benefits of it, but I don't think it solves posture at all. But Alexander's early work does, even though it kind of changed into something else later by his followers. And he started the process himself, actually, because by putting hands on people. So anyway, you're here to do it yourself. That's why I've called this for self-experimenters. You don't want to have to go to some magician to fix your body for you. Your goal is to fix it yourself and to be in control, actually not to fix it yourself, but to be in control of it yourself and to have some power over your own movements. So here's Alexander again. So you'll see him sitting, standing. He's got the same, squatting. He's got the same situation going on. He's got this maintaining this flat, long back. Look around you. You'll never see people like this without. Sometimes you might see something vaguely similar at the flat back, but it'll be collapsed at the top. They don't have this head forward and up. So I've been talking about the shape of the back because this is all just about the shape of the back. This just sounds like boring posture advice. Oh, your back should look like this, whatever. No, we want to expand the torso, which means we talked about the upper torso, middle torso, lower torso, and we defined some spots on the bones. So there was the top of the sternum. There was the rib 8, where the second ruler is on the left, is the rib 8. The top ruler is the top of the sternum, and the bottom ruler is the pelvis point. So you remember them from the earlier lesson. And you'll see they're all in a straight line with each other. And it's parallel with the line of the back. So there's the clue. So it's not just random that it's the straight back. There is actually a structure that we can aim at, that we can measure, and we can test and experiment and see if we're getting closer to it. And that is by looking at the position of these spots at the front, these bony spots that you can see on video, that you can see in images. And when you have a fully expanded torso, this is just what it looks like. When the torso is at its maximum length, you will find that the back has this straight effect. And at the front, these 3 spots will be in alignment. If you look at your videos from earlier, they won't be. For almost everybody, the middle of this line will be further forward than the top and the bottom when you stand. If you sit and you're slouching, it'll be the middle will be further back, but they won't be all 3 in the same line. So it'd be good. You could go and check now. You could quickly take a picture of yourself or a video of yourself, and you'd see it straight away. So this is like a middle way between the in terms of the back, it's like a middle way, but it's more precise when we start working with the spots. So this is images of one of my teachers, Jondo Masoero, and he is a Alexander technique teacher, but he teaches the initial Alexander technique, which is FM Alexander's earlier work. It's his understanding and research into the early work and his own experiments. I learned a lot of this stuff from him. Obviously, I'm teaching my own stuff also, but so I wanted to show you pictures of what some of the experiments he did, and you'll see both standing and sitting. He's used rulers to try and get those three lines, the three spots in alignment. So he's doing it sitting here. On the right, you see he's doing it sitting, and on the left, he's doing it standing. So what's the story with the rulers? I asked you to get rulers in the first lesson. 3 rulers the same size. So if a wall in front of you, so a wall is vertical, or it should be. If it's not vertical, you might have to fix it. But if we want another vertical line, how we would do it? We would get 3 horizontal lines of the same length, the rulers, and then if they're the exact distance from you to the wall, so if these 3 spots are the same distance or not, so we can tell if the 3 spots are on a vertical plane or not, just like the wall. So the 3 spots are parallel to the wall here, and then the back, this line of the back. So this is an expanded torso. So it's not like one doesn't just happen by itself. Probably our ancient ancestors had this automatically. It came down from the trees or whatever happened, and this was kind of natural to them before the brains developed and culture and all these other things. For us, we have to do something to get back to it. No amount of just relaxation or weightlifting or releasing muscle tension will make you create the expanded shape. You have to actually do something and direct the movements directly. You have to decide to do movements and then do certain movements, several movements at the same time. And then for us, we just have to use video to check because their feeling sense isn't very accurate, which we talked about in the second lesson. So the guy on the left, this is from a book about Delsarte, who is a French singing teacher, and I think like the 1800s. And it turns out that FM Alexander got a lot of his work from him. He used to be a Delsarte teacher. Delsarte seemed to have come across some of the same model as well, the same idea of posture. So this is images. I think it's one of his students. But they have certain rules of alignment for the different parts, which they were using for singing and drama as well, I think. And Delsarte, this is where what got me very interested in this was Delsarte said he got the idea of how the alignment should be based on studying Greek statues for 15 years. He studied all the different statues and he looked at, okay, so where's this body part in alignment with this other part? And he was looking at the structure of where the bony parts were relative to one another, rather than being like a normal guy now where you just look at the muscles and what lifts do I need to do to make those muscles. He was looking at the structure and then how to do movements to create the similar structure. He called it the noble pose. So I'm calling it expanded torso. The expanded torso. Sorry, I'm calling it the model of expanded posture. Could call it the noble pose. So anyway, so Jondo, who is French and can read the originals of Delsarte, pieced together some of Alexander's early work, and I've learned a lot of this from him. So that's him there. Here's an image of Hermes tying a sandal. It's quite an old and famous statue. And you'll see there's this long straight back shape here, and then this long curve forward at the top. So let's go back to here. So you see there's a curve forward at the top. So some of Alexander's early pupils in the beginning called this the hamp. And people don't want a hamp. It sounds bad. It seems like it'd be bad posture if you're slouching forward at the top. So how is it not collapsing? How is he not collapsing down? Because again, it's because of the spring system. The head is like counterweight balance at the front, and it's pulling the fascia at the back here, which is creating a spring system. I'll go into more of this in the next lesson. It'll make more sense. I'll show diagrams of those. But for now, let's look at the two shapes, the line of the back and the three spots at the front. So this is me doing movements, trying to get to look similar to Hermes tying a sandal. And you'll see here, I haven't fully done it, but I managed to do the back more straight. And then I have this slope forward at the top. But again, my head isn't, I'm not slouching. So my head is forward at the top, but it isn't slouching. It's lengthened here. It's expanded. I've moved the upper torso away from the middle torso and away from the lower torso. This whole distance here is longer. So I think this is part of the purpose of some of these ancient statues, was to give a model of how to do things. Because look, he's leaning over and he's lengthening his back. When we do it, we tend to curve our back and to contract and to just basically have bad posture when we lean over. And he seemed to be showing here that you can actually lean over and tie your sandal without shortening in stature. So you can maintain the lengthening of the back. So from the distance here, from under the armpit up to the head, it's a really long distance here. Most people, look at people, they don't have this. So Del Sartre was looking, I don't know if he was looking at this one, but he was looking at statues like this. Here's another one. This is Michelangelo. It's called Victory. Michelangelo's obviously copying older ones, I think. But still, you'll see here, it's the same model. It's got the straight lower, more or less straight lower and middle back. Obviously, they've got big glutes, a lot of these ones. So it sometimes doesn't look like it's as straight as Alexander, because Alexander's not like a weightlifter or whatever. But he was a actor, Shakespearean actor and orator. And so you'll see here, and you'll see the head again is forward and up of the lower back, and you'll see he's lengthening the whole upper torso here. So I showed you this image before here where I have this curve in my back. This is what you end up with if you do the Alexander technique as it's done now. Almost everyone has this curve where they're like the sergeant major and they're making themselves shorter, but you feel like you're taller. I know this has happened to me. So anyway, I think I've talked about it already. So on the right, I was doing movements, stepping forward, and you'll see I've gone from this curve to this much straighter line now, and lengthened the torso. So this is what we want. Here's some sports stars where you'll see the similar expanded torso. So I'm showing you this to show you that it's not just like plucked out of thin air. This shape seems to appear and reappear all through the ages. This specific shape. Not everyone has the full theory or understanding of why it's better. They just find out in practice it's better. So for golfers, is a good one. They use a lot of slow motion video and things like this, and getting themselves to do slightly different movements that they maybe not even feel in the moment, but then they check on video to see what's happening. And you'll see here, there's very specific alignment going on here that obviously just works better for them, that creates less injuries, that improves performance, that kind of thing. And you'll see he's got the straight back here up to roughly under the armpit, and then it slopes forward. But he's keeping like the lower legs stayed vertical. So he's expanding the torso as he does this. If you don't expand your torso and you play golf, you'll probably be bad at golf, but you'll probably get injured or you'll just be uncomfortable all the time. I'm not a golfer. If you are a golfer and you know more about this stuff, get in touch. I'd be interested to hear more about it. This guy on the right is an old Australian cricket player. So you will see the expanded torso again, where he's like swinging. I mean, this is like, these are people who are doing performing actions. They're not just sitting, feeling nice posture in their seat at their desk. They're managing to expand the torso as they do movements. This is dynamic. It's not just something to sit around with. Again, this is pulling the springs here, which we'll talk about in the next one. And here's, you'll see it in some sprinters. you'll see this guy's doing Sergeant Major. You see he's creating this curve around the front and the curve at the back. And the guy, the number 8, is doing the expanded torso. So I'm not saying you don't have to have the perfect expanded torso to be the best runner. I'm not saying that. It's not as simple. It's way more. It's more complex than that. But you look at the effort the guy on the right is making compared to the guy on the left. So this is to do. I'm convinced this is partially to do with this bad posture. Basically, that's the way. The shortening of the torso, to be more accurate. Where this guy's lengthening his torso more. And this skier, you'll see he's got this long, straight, lengthened torso again. So this is like, this creates a lot of weight. This sport will create a lot of wear and tear on your body if you're not using yourself efficiently. So it's probably not a coincidence that they stumbled across this as the best for long-term training. So again, you'll see the shoulders aren't pulled back because he's doing something with them. But there's no reason why your shoulders have to be pulled back when you're not doing something with them. And this is more than sport now. So this is something that's like some research was done, and it's like a debate, and people are debating it. Guys debated about what's the best position for recovery, whether for breathing recovery when you're tired, whether to put your hands behind your head or whether to put your hands on your knees. And this study a few years ago said that the hands on the knees is better for heart rate recovery and increasing your breath and things like this. Well, what are you doing when you do this? You're creating the expanded torso again. So I think this will be better. So I'm not a scientist. I've not done the studies. I'm just based on what I've been talking about, this model of expanded posture. I'm convinced that yes, this will be better because you've expanded the torso and you've got all your vital organs that are inside, your heart, your lungs, everything else. So if you've expanded your torso, there's more space for them. So they're probably going to work better. So what's going on the inside? Oh, sorry. One more thing is this is an image of the guy on the left is an image of a guy. This is like I think it's a COVID patient. And they discovered that when people have very bad breathing issues, I don't know, is it people that had previous illnesses or conditions, but whatever, when they got ill, they had breathing issues and they found that this was the best position for them to recover in. What have they done here? They put pillows underneath his pelvis here at the bottom. And you'll see he's just lying down in the same position of expanded torso I've showed you. They've tried to make it more or less straight, flat and back. It's not perfectly straight, but it's much straighter than just lying without the pillows. So, his knees will be lower here. And this head is further, it's not in a straight line of the lower back. So if he was standing, his head would be further forward and up, just like the images of Alexander and just like the statues I showed you. It's not directly above the spine. The lumbar spine, the way that you get these images of this head pulled back, good posture when you see these diagrams. And you'll see where the arm is. This is taking the shoulder forward, not back. So is this just a coincidence that they create the expanded posture? So when somebody's suffering, the expanded posture reduces it? Or is it because it is more efficient and it's what we should be doing? On the right, you'll see this is a product made by a French guy, I think, and it was to help babies sleep when they're very young babies, to help them sleep better. And I think he just came up with this through experimentation. I'm not sure, but I think it was just experimenting with different shapes for his own kids, and this was the one that helped them the best, helped them sleep. And what do you see again? It's creating the expanded torso for the baby. You'll see the shape they've got here. The head and the upper torso are further forward than the back. It's raised up here near the head, and then it's raised at the knees again. So that means the back can be flattened and widened underneath, and it seems to work better because it's more efficient. It's expanding the baby's torso. It's not the same. The situation isn't the same for babies as it is for adults, obviously, but it's the same general principle. expand the torso. So what's happening when you expand the torso? Why is it affecting breathing? Because your lungs obviously are inside your torso, and you expand. When you expand the torso, you will expand the lungs. You will expand the amount of distance between the. You will expand the vertical distance and the horizontal distance of the rib cage as a whole. And here's another reason how we know this. This guys on the left are bel canto singers, and the bel canto singers, which is older than Delsart, I think it's one of his influences, they have discovered that if you have this head forward and upper torso pulled forward but up, it's not slouching, it creates what they were calling vocal protection, where people weren't losing their voice as much and they were able to sing better and perform better. And again, this is just like experimenting for practical reasons. There was a lot of problems the other way. This was improving things by doing it this way. So again, I'm not a singer. I don't know a lot about this. I just find it interesting that it's the same principle again. So you've got all these experts in different areas who've tried to solve a problem in a specific place, and they keep coming across this expanded posture model in different ways from different angles. And I think there's something to it. So this is what I practice for myself. And this is what I teach to people one-on-one. And this is what I'm teaching in this course. And on the right, you'll see this is the effect it has on your lungs and your rib cage. So if you pull the head back, so imagine the Sergeant Major. So the image of the ribs on the left was more crushed in. This is the Sergeant Major. So he's pulling the head back. So this is so you imagine the neck coming up here above the ribs. He's pulling the head back to keep the head sort of on a vertical line with the lumbar spine. And you'll see what it's doing. It's crushing all the ribs together. It's creating the shape that we saw in the second lesson, of the front of your sternum. For almost everybody, the top of the sternum would be further back than the bottom, although you probably felt like the top was further forward than the bottom. It's fascinating. This is right here, and now almost everyone gets this. Most people get this wrong. If you do this movement on the left, if you create the shape that we've taught, create this shape of the expanded posture, you will see that the sternum ends up vertical. So the front of the rib cage ends up vertical. It's rotated. So we'll talk about more of that in the next few lessons and how to do that, because it's central. But I just want to show you that the shape of the posture you have, physical structure, is related to the breathing, to your breathing, because it must be, because that's the mechanism inside. So good breathing and posture are two sides of the same coin. Good breathing and an expanded torso are two sides of the same coin. So the more you expand the torso, the better your breathing should become. That's not a medical statement. Different situations for different people. Just talking generally, this is true. And I think that's why all these people have discovered it in different ways. So just go back to F.M. Alexander. He started working his posture because he lost his voice. And he was having gasping air. So these things are connected. So the people who are solving posture were interested in breathing. I'm going to speculate and say the ancient Greeks had breathing exercises that were related to their movement practices. Obviously, we don't have record of everything, but I reckon that they were doing this too. And I think that explains why it's been singers and actors who are some of the main people to have discovered this, because it's a real daily. It's evident to them in their daily practice when things are going wrong and when things aren't. Whereas like everyone else just walking around with bad posture and they just think it's something that they're doing. They don't realize that there's a shape they could change their body to that will support them. So how do you lengthen the torso? So what you need is synchronized movements of parts. So like the Rubik's Cube I talked about before, you can't just do one movement, then another movement, then another movement. You need to get several things happening at the same time to solve all the colors. You can't just do red, then white, then yellow, whatever. So for us, we need to do several movements at the same time to try and change the structure. So you'll see on the left, this is a diagram of the Sergeant Major. So you'll see the head's back. He's trying to get the head directly above the lumbar spine, but the lumbar spine's actually curved in. Sticking for the abdomen at the front. This is a phrase Alexander used a lot, protruding abdomen. This is what he meant, even though every Alexander technique has a protruding abdomen now. It's bizarre. I had it too. By the way, if anyone's interested in Alexander technique or they are involved in that and they want to talk about these things with me, let me know. I don't want to go into too much detail here. People are here for posture, not a history lesson about a specific technique. But if this is your thing, get in touch. Happy to talk about it and share more. I've got lots of images and stuff that will make a more convincing case than I might have done so far. So to lengthen the torso, we need to change the movements that change the shape. So you'll see here, if you take this spot here at the front, so this is the rib 8. You'll see on the left, it's further forward than the right. So we know that that needs to come back. And you'll see that the pelvis point here is very far forward on the left. So it needs to come back so that it's not, so this spot isn't so far forward of your ankle at the bottom. So you see on the right, we'll see these three, the spots are in this line again. So we have the top of the sternum, the rib 8, seen from the side, and the pelvis point, and this front of the ankle here at the bottom. So there's a line there we can create with bony parts, and we can look in video to see if we have it or not. That line isn't there on the left, but it's the same line we had here. This line here. So I think it was still Sartre's phrase to call this the line of unity. So by unity, it means they're just in the same on the same vertical plane, and they're also on a vertical plane if you're leaning forward. So I was trying to do that with this one here, and I was leaning forward. So our aim is to have these 4 spots in a line. So this gives you a definite thing to aim at. So this is a task. You're not going to be able to just do it straight away, or you're very talented. Get in touch, teach me, because it took a lot of work for me. I'm sorry, it's just the facts of the matter. But now at least you know what to aim for, whereas before you're just going chasing some vague feeling. Oh, that feels about right, and then it just doesn't seem to get better. We all know this, so you wouldn't be here. So when you do the experiment, it's going to feel bizarre getting into this shape, or even trying to get in the shape. It'll feel weird if you are getting it right, and it'll feel weird if you're getting it wrong. It might feel like nothing and you've done a big change. It might feel like a huge amount and you haven't really done anything. When you look, again, video is essential to watch the video and then see the new relations between the parts. More details of the movements that are required. So most people, most of you watching this, almost all of you will be, when you stand, you'll be doing a little bit of the Sergeant Major. You'll be curving in your lower back. You'll be sticking out the ribs at the front like this. And you'll see on the right where there's a diagram of what it looked like if you were to lengthen if you were to expand the torso and to lengthen the torso using these spots, these bony parts as a reference point. So if you look at the image on the left, these are movements. So he's doing, this is Alexander, he's doing movements all at the same time. He's pulling the pelvis point, so movement B. He's pulling the pelvis point back. He's moving the rib 8, which is movement C. He's moving the rib 8 back at the same time. At the same time as this, he's pulling the sitting bones. So remember the sitting bones, where you'll feel pressing into the chair if you're sitting on a firm chair, like I recommended. Sitting bones are going forward, and the top of the sternum he's pulling forward at the same time. So you've got 2 movements going forward at the top and bottom, and the 2 movements in the middle going back. So these are going against one another. This is a very important principle. This idea, it's called antagonistic action, which we'll talk about in the next lesson. But for now, this is what pulls the spring. So you imagine you're pulling an elastic band. There's 2 antagonistic actions pulling apart. So we need to do movements that are going in opposite directions that will pull you. What happens if you pull an elastic band? It expands the distance. You lengthen the distance between the 2 ends. That's what we're looking for, expanded torso. So if you look at picture view, you're probably like the Sergeant Major. So you need to do these movements, the same type of movements. You need to get the rib back, the pelvis point back at the same time. and while pulling the sitting bones forward and the top of the sternum forward at the same time. So it's 4 movements. You have to get these 4 movements in mind, and then you have to do them. And then you have to check in the video, see how it worked. The idea with the rulers here is it shows you that they're the same distance from the wall, which proves they're in a vertical plane. So this is why I'm going to, in the experiment coming up, I want you to do it in front of a wall. Make sure it's like a smooth wall that you have access to. And you'll have the 2 or 3 rulers. 3 is better, but if you've only got 2, it's fine. That are the exact same length. Then you know if different parts, you can just fit the ruler in and decide whether, and you can see whether it's the same, they're the same distance or not. If you can get the rulers horizontal, parallel with the floor. So again, you'll see the same pattern again. It's the straight line of the back, but the lower and middle back, and you've got these alignment of the spots in the front. So these 2 things go together. If you expand the torso, it will look like this shape from the outside, but then if you're more precise and look at the bone parts, this will be the relation of the bony parts. So it's objective. This is objective. It's not a feeling. It's not a sort of rough sense of, oh, this bit should be here, or your head should be over here. It's pretty exact. And we can take screenshots and we can agree or not whether things are further forward or not. Whether something's further forward, further back, or whether you're collapsing down. So as I say, it's a lot more objective than the way that you've probably been trying to fix your posture all your life. So again, here's another picture of John Doe. So I'm showing John Doe here because I've learned so much from him. He is demonstrating here using the rulers to know whether the spots are in alignment or not, because you can't feel the bony parts. You can see them on the video, but in the moment when you're playing around, you want to be able to know what's happening. So if you get the rulers, so best to start with 2. So sit on the edge of a chair like this, with your feet further back than your knees, sitting on the edge of the chair, and place the ruler between the pelvis point and the wall, so that you'll need to adjust where you're sitting and how close the chair is, so that you get the exact ruler distance like this. That's your first movement. If you look at yourself at this point on the video, so make sure you're recording. So if you look at yourself in the video after, you'll notice at this point that your rib in the middle here is probably farther forward. You're creating a curve at the front. So now in order to get the second ruler in, you'll have to pull the rib back. But when you do this, you'll probably pull the head back as well. Or the upper torso. So you need to be pulling the top of the sternum forward at the same time. So play around with this. So you'll see now he's got the ruler here at the top of the sternum and the ruler at the rib 8. And they're in a vertical plane now because both rulers can be seen at the same distance from the wall. They're horizontal. So we know that they're in a vertical plane. This is why you need the wall. Wall's very important. So if somebody comes into the house and sees you doing this, they'll think you're insane, obviously. So that's why I wanted you to have a space that you can work in that's ready to go. And you just do this every morning. If you can, do this another time of day. And try and get all 3 rulers on the 3 spots, like in the earlier images. So try and get all 3, start with 2, and then try and work to 3. You'll feel rotten when you do this. You'll feel things stretching and straining, that's fine. Just force them in. Make sure the ruler's not too sharp so it doesn't cut into your skin or whatever, especially if you don't have your top on when you do this, because you'll really feel the pressure, because if your middle ribs are really wanting to go forward through habit, when you push the ruler in, they're still trying to go forward, even though it's pushing into the ruler, so it might hurt you. So you have to play around with this. In the next lesson, I'm going to show you a more conscious, reasoned way to do the movements. But for now, it's interesting to play around with this to see how far away your current posture is from this expanded posture. And the main thing to look out for is don't take your head down. Don't pull your head down, because you're just collapsing. You're shortening in stature. You're not expanding the torso of the head. You're pulling the head and the torso down in the front. So when we saw the picture earlier of Alexander, you see the head's forward and up, but it's not collapsed. Okay, so this week, make some more videos. Look at the shapes you make. Do this experiment here. placing in the rulers, and then see if you can get the 3 spots in alignment. Don't worry if you can't. You maybe can't. That's okay. As I say, in the next one, I'll show you a better way of doing it. But for now, the whole purpose of this lesson 4 and principle 4 is to get this idea, this model of expanded torso in your mind. So you know roughly what it looks like, you know what you're looking for, this kind of long flat back. And at the same time, then being more precise and seeing where those, if the bony parts are in alignment or not. So go back to the last lesson if you need to review those parts, the parts on the bones that we're using here for where the dots are. And you'll notice, by the way, when you sit like this, it looks like you're having to strain and hold yourself out. Once you get in this position, it doesn't require anything to hold you up, because the gravity of your head and the top of the torso going forward is what is pulling the springs. We'll talk about this in the next one. And it maintains you in position. You don't need to do anything. You'd have to do very little. So it's bizarre once you get into it. So there's a lot of strain and stress and bad feelings to get there. And then once you're there, it seems easy. And then it's a case of just training yourself every day to be able to get into that position more easily and more regularly. So just one last thing is the idea of the rulers here is to force you into the shape, using the rulers to force the shape. But it would be interesting to see if you can try and create the shape by just directing the movements directly with your mind, rather than forcing them in with the ruler. So have a go at that. And if you have any questions or you get stuck, send me a message, and we'll see you in the next video. Cheers.